The blood hit the floor before anyone saw her move. 3 armed men in tactical gear had just breached the corridor of Riverside General Hospital in Coldwater, Montana, and the quiet nurse they'd mocked for months disarmed the first operative before his finger reached the trigger. Her hands moved with surgical precision, muscle memory from a life everyone believed had ended in a classified grave overseas. The hospital staff had called her weak. They'd called her an outsider. They'd stripped her of her rank and shoved her into the supply closet like discarded equipment. But when the dying Special Forces officer on the gurney opened his eyes and saluted her like she was still his commanding officer, the entire building realized they'd been wrong about Elena Cross. Dead wrong. If you want to see how a woman they tried to erase became the one who exposed everything, stay with me until the very end. Like this video, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels, and let's get into it. The ambulance screamed into the emergency bay at 4:47 a.m., and Elena Cross was already moving before the doors opened. She'd been restocking trauma supplies in Bay 3 when the dispatch crackled through. Military escort inbound, critical GSW, officer down. The other nurses barely looked up. Night shift at Riverside General meant drunks, overdoses, and the occasional car wreck. Military cases were rare, VIP cases even rarer. Elena pushed through the double doors as the paramedics hauled the gurney out. The man strapped to it was massive, easily 6'3", covered in desert dust and dried blood. His tactical vest had been cut away, revealing field dressings soaked through. An IV bag swung wildly as they rushed him toward Trauma 1. Male, late 30s, multiple GSWs to the torso and left shoulder, the lead paramedic barked. BP's dropping, lost pulse twice en route. He's circling. Elena caught the edge of the gurney and fell into step. Her eyes scanned the wounds with practiced efficiency. Entry points, blood loss pattern, breathing rate. She'd seen this before. Not here. Somewhere else. Somewhere no one in this building knew about. Dr. Marcus Holt was already scrubbing in when they crashed through the trauma room doors. He was Riverside's chief of emergency medicine, a man who wore his authority like a bulletproof vest and made sure everyone knew it. He glanced at the patient, then at Elena, and his jaw tightened. "Who called Cross in here?" "I'm on rotation," Elena said evenly. "You're on supply duty. We need hands. We need competent hands." Holt snapped his gloves on and moved to the head of the gurney. "Garcia, you're primary. Cross, you touch nothing unless I tell you to." Elena didn't argue. She'd learned that arguing with men like Holt was a waste of oxygen. She stepped back to the monitoring station and kept her eyes on the vitals. Heart rate erratic. Oxygen saturation dropping. The patient was coding. Garcia, a second-year resident with nervous hands, fumbled the intubation tube. Once, twice. The monitor shrieked. "Get it in," Holt snapped. Garcia tried again. The tube slipped. Elena's hands moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the room in 3 strides, took the tube from Garcia's shaking grip, and slid it into the patient's airway with the kind of muscle memory that came from doing it in the back of a Humvee under enemy fire. The seal was perfect. The monitor's scream died. Holt's face went purple. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Saving his life? You don't make that call. Someone had to." The room went silent except for the hiss of the ventilator. Garcia stared at her like she'd just walked on water. The other nurses exchanged glances. Elena kept her face blank and stepped back. Holt pointed at the door. "Out. Now." Elena walked. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew what happened next. She'd been through it before. Different hospital, different name, same script. Do the right thing, get punished for it. That was the game. She was just better at playing it than they thought. She was halfway down the hall when she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey, wait!" Elena turned. It was one of the paramedics who'd brought the patient in. Older guy, graying beard, name tag that read Kozlov. He was holding a clipboard and a clear evidence bag with a military ID inside. "You the one who got the tube in?" "Yeah. Nice work." He held out the bag. "This came with him. Figured someone should log it before it disappears into the system." Elena took the bag and glanced at the ID inside. The photo showed the same man from the gurney, younger, cleaner, smiling in dress blues. The name beneath it made her stomach drop. Captain Jackson Reed, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Her hand tightened on the bag. Kozlov was watching her. You know him? No. You sure? You got a look on your face. I don't know him. Kozlov studied her for another beat, then shrugged. Suit yourself. Just thought I'd ask. He turned and headed back toward the bay. Elena stood in the hallway, staring at the ID Jackson Reed. She'd never met anyone by that name, but she recognized the unit insignia on his uniform. She recognized the call sign stamped beneath his rank. And she recognized the scars on his chest, the ones she'd seen when they'd cut his vest away. Pattern and placement. Shrapnel from an IED, Desert Theater, probably 3 years ago. She knew because she'd treated wounds exactly like that before. She'd stitched men back together in field hospitals that didn't officially exist, under commanders who didn't officially give orders. She shoved the bag into her pocket and kept walking. By the time she reached the supply room, her hands were shaking. She locked the door behind her and leaned against the wall, breathing slow and controlled. 4 years. She'd been dead for 4 years. New name, new face, new life. She'd buried Lieutenant Maya Garrett in a file stamped classified, deceased, and walked away from everything. The rank, the medals, the missions nobody could talk about. She'd done it to survive. She'd done it because staying dead was easier than explaining why she wasn't. And now someone from that life was 30 feet away, bleeding out on a table she wasn't allowed to touch. Her phone buzzed. A text from Holt's assistant. Report to admin. 9 a.m. Don't be late. Elena closed her eyes. Here we go. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Dr. Holt sat behind his desk with his arms crossed and his face set in the expression of a man who'd already made his decision before she walked in. Beside him sat Sandra Yates, the hospital's director of nursing, a woman who smiled like a politician and had the empathy of a parking ticket. Ms. Cross, Yates began, folding her hands on the desk, we've received multiple complaints about your conduct. From who? That's not relevant. It's relevant to me. Holt leaned forward. You overstepped your authority in a critical procedure. You undermined a physician in front of his team. You created a hostile work environment. I saved a man's life. You got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You're a trauma nurse with 2 years of experience, Holt said. You don't have the training to make the calls you made last night. Elena met his eyes. I have more training than you think. Then maybe you should have stayed wherever you came from. Yates opened a file folder. Your employment record shows a 2-year gap before you applied here. No references. No previous hospital experience we can verify. You listed a nursing degree from a program that doesn't return our calls. I was overseas. Doing what? Medical work. Where? Elena didn't answer. Yates closed the folder. We're reassigning you. Effective immediately, you'll be working supply and inventory management. No patient contact, no trauma rotation. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to find another hospital. Elena stood. She didn't argue. Arguing meant explaining, and explaining meant opening doors she'd welded shut. She walked out of the office, past the stares of the nurses at the station, past the whispers that followed her like smoke. She made it to the stairwell before the anger hit. She sat down on the steps and pressed her palms against her temples. 4 years of hiding, 4 years of keeping her head down, blending in, doing the job without making waves. And it had lasted exactly one night. One patient, one tube. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She stared at it for a long moment before answering. Elena Cross? The voice on the other end was female, clipped, professional. This is Agent Victoria Lang, Department of Defense Criminal Investigation Division. I need to speak with you about Captain Jackson Reed. Elena's throat tightened. I don't know who that is. You treated him last night. I'm a nurse. I treat a lot of people. Captain Reed regained consciousness an hour ago. He's asking for you. Then he's confused. He says you served together. He's wrong. There was a pause. Ms. Cross, I've reviewed your file, or what's left of it. Most of your history prior to 2 years ago is redacted or missing. That's not normal. That's not even legal for a civilian nursing application. I don't know what you're talking about. Captain Reed says your real name is Maya Garrett. He says you were declared KYA 3 years ago in a classified operation. He says you were his commanding officer. Elena ended the call. She sat there staring at the phone, her pulse hammering in her ears. They knew. Or they suspected. Either way, the wall she'd built around her past was cracking. She stood up and walked back to the supply room. She had 8 hours left on her shift. She'd finish them. Then she'd figure out what the hell to do next. But when she opened the door, someone was already inside. Jackson Reed was sitting on a storage crate, IV still in his arm, hospital gown hanging off his shoulders. His face was pale, stitched, bruised, but his eyes were clear. And when he saw her, he tried to stand. Elena crossed the room in 2 strides and shoved him back down. "What are you doing out of bed?" "Had to find you." "You're in no condition to be walking around. I'm in no condition to be alive, but here we are." He winced as he shifted his weight. "You look different." "I don't know you." "Yeah, you do." He reached up and tapped the scar above his left eyebrow, a thin white line that cut through the skin. "Mosul, 2021. Sniper round took out our spotter. You patched me up in the back of a Humvee while mortars were landing 50 meters out. Told me to stop being a baby. You remember that?" Elena's jaw tightened. "You need to leave." "Can't. They've got guards outside my room, federal agents everywhere. Someone wants me quiet, and I don't think it's because they care about my recovery." He leaned forward. "Maya, don't call me that. They're coming for you. If they know I recognized you, they'll know you're alive. And if they know you're alive, they'll finish what they started." Elena stepped back. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The hell you don't. Operation Sandline, Task Force Phantom, the ambush that killed 16 operators and buried the whole program. You were there, so was I. We both know what we saw, and we both know why we were supposed to die." The door opened behind her. Elena spun around. Agent Lang stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 hospital security guards. Her face was unreadable. "Ms. Cross, or should I say, Lieutenant Garrett." Elena didn't move. Lang stepped inside. "Captain Reed has made some very serious allegations. Before this goes any further, I need you to come with me." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet." "Then I'm staying here." Lang's expression hardened. "This isn't a request." Reed stood up, swaying slightly. "She doesn't go anywhere without me." "Captain, you're in no condition." "I don't care." He locked eyes with Elena. "If she disappears into some back room, she won't come out. You know it. I know it. So, if you want her, you're taking both of us." Lang looked between them. For a moment, Elena thought she'd push it, but then she nodded. "Fine. Both of you. Conference room. Now." They walked through the hospital like prisoners under escort. Nurses stared. Doctors whispered. Elena kept her face forward and her breathing steady. Beside her, Reed moved like a man who'd been shot recently, because he had been. But he didn't falter. The conference room was small, windowless, and smelled like burned coffee. Lang closed the door and gestured to the chairs. Elena and Reed sat. The guards stayed outside. Lang placed a file on the table. "Let's start simple. Who are you?" Elena didn't answer. Lang opened the file. Inside were photos, desert landscapes, burned-out vehicles, bodies in tactical gear. "Operation Sandline, Classified Anti-Trafficking Task Force operating in Iraq and Syria, 2021. Official record says the unit was ambushed and wiped out. 17 killed. No survivors." She pulled out another photo. This one showed a woman in desert fatigues, rifle slung across her chest, face half covered by a scarf. The eyes were the same. "Lieutenant Maya Garrett, field surgeon and team leader. Declared KYA. Body never recovered." Lang looked up. "Except you're sitting right in front of me." Reed spoke before Elena could. "We were set up." "By who?" "By the people who didn't want us finding what we found." Lang's eyes narrowed. "Which was?" "Proof. Weapon shipments going to the wrong hands, medical supplies being diverted, contracts signed by companies that didn't exist. We had names, dates, wire transfers, enough to burn half the defense contractors in the Middle East. And someone wanted that buried." "Someone already buried it, along with everyone who knew." Reed's voice dropped. "We split up after the ambush. Maya stayed behind to cover the extraction. I thought she was dead. Everyone thought she was dead. That was the point." Lang turned back to Elena. "Is this true?" Elena's voice was flat. "If I say yes, What happens? Depends on what else you know. And if I say no, then you're lying, and I'll find out why. Elena leaned back in her chair. 4 years of running, hiding, rebuilding, and now it was all about to collapse. She could feel it coming, the questions, the investigations, the spotlight. Everything she'd buried was clawing its way back to the surface. She looked at Reed. He gave her a small nod. She looked at Lang. Yeah, it's true. Lang didn't blink. Then we have a problem. Because 3 hours ago, I received a transfer order for Captain Reed. Full medical extraction to a private facility in Virginia. Armed escort. Immediate departure. Who authorized it? A contractor named Greystone Medical Solutions. They've been handling high-level military recoveries for the past 2 years. Very quiet, very connected. Reed's face went white. Greystone. Elena knew that name. She'd seen it before. On shipping manifests. On medical supply crates. On the side of trucks that shouldn't have been in villages where firefights had just ended. Lang leaned forward. You know them? Yeah, Reed said quietly. We know them. Then you know this isn't a transfer. It's a cleanup. The door opened. Dr. Holt stepped inside, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. Their jackets bulged at the hip. They weren't hospital security. Holt's face was tight. Agent Lang, these gentlemen are here to take Captain Reed into federal custody. Lang stood. On whose authority? One of the suits pulled out a badge. Department of Defense. We'll be transporting Captain Reed to a secure facility for his safety. His safety or yours? The man didn't answer. He looked at Reed. Captain, time to go. Reed didn't move. I'm not going anywhere. This isn't optional. Then you're going to have to drag me out. The second suit reached for Reed's arm. Elena moved without thinking. She stepped between them, her body language shifting into something sharp and military. The suit stopped. Ma'am, step aside. No. Holt's voice cracked like a whip. Cross, you're already on thin ice. Don't make this worse. Elena didn't take her eyes off the suit. If you want him, you'll have to go through me. The suit's hand moved toward his jacket. Lang's moved faster. Her badge was out, her voice cold. Federal agent, both of you, hands where I can see them. Right now. The suits hesitated, then slowly they complied. Lang turned to Holt. Dr. Holt, I'm officially placing Captain Reed under protective custody pending a federal investigation. Anyone who interferes will be charged with obstruction. Holt's face went red. You have no authority here. Actually, I do. And unless you want the FBI going through this hospital's records with a fine-tooth comb, I suggest you back off. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Holt turned and walked out, the suits following. The door slammed behind them. Lang exhaled. That bought us maybe an hour. An hour for what? Elena asked. To figure out who's trying to kill you both, and why they're using my hospital to do it. Reed looked at Elena. They're not going to stop. Elena knew he was right. She'd known it the second she'd seen his face. The past didn't stay buried. It came back. It always came back, and now it was here, armed and wearing suits, and it wanted them both dead. She met Reed's eyes. Then we don't run. We end this. Lang stared at her. And what? Elena turned to face her. The people who tried to erase us. The ones who've been getting away with it for 3 years. Her voice was quiet, steady, and absolutely final. We're going to burn them down. Lang's phone buzzed before anyone could respond. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted from cautious to hostile in under a second. They're locking down the building. Every exit. Hospital administration just authorized it. She looked up. Someone just made you two the most wanted people in Coldwater. Elena moved to the door and cracked it open. Through the gap, she could see security guards taking positions at the corridor intersections. 2 of them carried radios. One had his hand resting on a sidearm that hospital security definitely wasn't supposed to have. Those aren't rent-a-cops, Reed said from behind her. No, they're not. Elena closed the door and turned back. How long before they come for us? Minutes? Maybe less. Lang was already pulling up something on her phone. Greystone Medical Solutions isn't just a contractor. It's a shell, 3 layers deep, all owned by a parent company called Sentinel Defense Group. They've got contracts with half the military hospitals in the country. And they're using them to clean up loose ends, Reed said. Lang nodded. I've been tracking irregularities for 6 months. Soldiers brought in from overseas with injuries that don't match their mission reports. Medical records that get sealed or disappear entirely. A few of them died under suspicious circumstances, but every death was ruled natural or complications from surgery. Elena's stomach turned. They're experimenting. That's my guess. Using wounded soldiers as test subjects. New drugs, new procedures, things that wouldn't pass normal trials. The military gives them access. Greystone provides the cover, and anyone who figures it out gets buried. Literally, Reed muttered. We need proof, Elena said. We need to stay alive long enough to find it, Lang shot back. Right now, Greystone knows you're here. They know Reed recognized you. They're not going to risk letting either of you walk out of this building. Then we don't walk. We fight. Lang stared at her. You're a nurse. I'm a soldier, Elena corrected. The nurse part came after. Reed pushed himself to his feet, wincing as the stitches pulled. There's a records room on the 3rd floor. If Greystone's running experiments through this hospital, the evidence will be there. Paper trails, patient files, anything they couldn't scrub digitally. You can't even stand without bleeding, Lang said. I'll manage. Elena looked at him. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. He wouldn't make it up 2 flights of stairs, let alone through a records search while armed men hunted them. But he was right. If they ran now, they'd be running forever. And the people who'd tried to kill them once would just try again. She turned to Lang. Can you get us to the 3rd floor? Probably, but once we're up there, I can't protect you. I'm one agent with a sidearm. They've got a small army. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. Lang studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But if this goes sideways, I'm putting you both in cuffs and dragging you out myself. Deal. They moved fast. Lang led them through a service corridor that bypassed the main hallway, her badge clearing them past 2 locked doors. Reed kept pace, but Elena could see the strain in his movements. Every step cost him. He wasn't going to last. They made it to the stairwell before the first alarm went off. The sound was shrill, mechanical, and came from every speaker in the building at once. Lang's radio crackled to life. All units, we have a security breach. 2 subjects, considered armed and dangerous. Detain on site. That was fast, Reed said. They're not playing around. Lang shoved open the stairwell door. Move, now! They climbed. Elena took Reed's arm when he stumbled on the 2nd landing, half dragging him up the last flight. By the time they reached the 3rd floor, his face was gray and his shirt was spotted with blood. The stitches had torn. Lang checked the hallway. Empty, but that wouldn't last. She gestured them forward, and they slipped through the door into a corridor lined with administrative offices. At the far end was a set of double doors marked medical records, authorized personnel only. There, Reed said. They were halfway down the hall when the elevator at the end dinged. Elena grabbed Reed and pulled him into an empty office, Lang right behind them. They pressed against the wall as footsteps echoed past. 4 men, moving in formation. Not hospital security, not even police. Military contractors in civilian clothes, earpieces visible, weapons concealed under their jackets. Lang waited until the footsteps faded before exhaling. Greystone. How many? Elena asked. At least a dozen in the building, probably more outside. Reed leaned against the desk, breathing hard. We're not getting out of here. Not without what we came for, Elena agreed. She looked at Lang. Can you access the records room? Not without a keycard and a login, both of which I don't have. Then we find someone who does. They moved back into the hall, staying low and quiet. Elena's eyes scanned every corner, every shadow. She'd done this before. Moved through hostile territory, avoided patrols, stayed invisible. But that was in war zones where the rules were different. Here, the enemy wore badges and had legal authority. One wrong move and they'd be labeled terrorists or traitors. Greystone would make sure of it. They found the records room unguarded. That should have been a relief. Instead, it set off every alarm bell in Elena's head. Lang hesitated at the door. This feels like a trap. Probably is, Elena said. She tried the handle. Locked. She glanced at Reed. You still carry a pick set? He managed a weak grin. Never leave home without it. 30 seconds later, the lock clicked. They slipped inside and closed the door behind them. The room was massive, lined floor to ceiling with filing cabinets and storage boxes. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A single computer terminal sat on a desk in the corner, password protected. "Start with paper files," Elena said. "Anything from the last 3 years, military patients, unusual injuries, surgical complications." They split up. Reed took the left wall, Lang took the right. Elena went straight for the desk and started pulling open drawers. The first 2 were empty. The third had a keycard clipped to a lanyard. She pocketed it and moved to the filing cabinets. The labels were organized by year and patient type. She found the section marked Military Referrals 2023 to 2025 and started pulling files. Most were routine, training injuries, vehicle accidents, post-deployment checkups. But every 10th file or so had a red stamp in the corner, Greystone Medical Oversight. She opened one. Inside was a patient chart for a Marine Corps sergeant, age 26, admitted with shrapnel wounds from an IED. Standard stuff. Except the treatment notes didn't match the injury. Experimental drug trials, unauthorized tissue samples, a surgery that wasn't listed in the official report. The patient had died 3 days after admission. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. Elena pulled another file. Army specialist, age 31, GSW to the abdomen. Same pattern. Experimental treatments, unexplained procedures, sudden death. She pulled a third, a fourth, a fifth, all dead. All under Greystone's care. "Lang, you need to see this." Lang crossed the room and looked over Elena's shoulder. Her face went pale. "How many?" "At least 20 in this cabinet alone." "They're killing them." "No, they're using them until they die, then they cover it up." Reed appeared beside them, holding a file of his own. "Found one that survived, sort of." He opened it. Inside was a photo of a young soldier, barely old enough to shave. Private Lucas Monroe, brought in with burns and smoke inhalation. Greystone put him on an experimental drug protocol. He survived, but the side effects were severe: memory loss, seizures, organ damage. Last note says he was transferred to a psychiatric facility in Idaho. "Did they list which one?" Lang asked. "No. Just says long-term care. Probably means they buried him somewhere no one would look." Elena's jaw tightened. 20 dead, 1 destroyed. And those were just the files they'd found in 10 minutes. How many more were hidden in other hospitals, other records rooms, other cities? "We need copies," she said. Lang pulled out her phone and started photographing pages. Elena grabbed another stack and did the same. Reed sat down at the desk, his hands shaking, and started going through digital records. They worked in silence for 5 minutes. Then the lights went out. The hum of the building's ventilation system died. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in a sickly red glow. Lang's radio crackled. "All units, power failure on floors 3 and 4, switching to backup." "They cut the power," Reed said. "They're flushing us out." Elena moved to the door and listened. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Close. Lang drew her sidearm. "How many exits?" "1." Elena pointed at the door they'd come through. "And they're about to come through it." Reed stood, swaying. "There's a ventilation shaft in the back corner. Leads to the maintenance level." "You can't fit through a vent in your condition." "Then you two go. I'll stay and buy time." "No?" Elena's voice was flat, final. "We all go or none of us do." "Elena." "That's an order, Captain." Reed's mouth snapped shut. For a moment he looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded. They moved to the back of the room. The vent was behind a filing cabinet, bolted to the wall. Elena grabbed the edge and pulled. The cabinet didn't budge. "Help me." Lang joined her. Together they dragged the cabinet aside, metal screeching against tile. The vent cover was held in place by 4 screws. Elena didn't have time to find a screwdriver. She slammed her boot into the grate once, twice, and on the third kick it tore free. The opening was barely 2 feet wide. Elena went first, pulling herself into the shaft. The metal was cold and sharp, cutting into her palms. She crawled forward, making room. Lang came next, then Reed. He grunted as he squeezed through, fresh blood darkening his shirt. Behind them, the door to the records room exploded inward. "Go," Lang hissed. Elena crawled faster. The shaft angled down, then turned sharply left. Her shoulders scraped the sides. Behind her, she could hear Reed struggling, his breathing ragged. "Stay with me," she called back. "I'm here." The shaft ended in a vertical drop. Elena looked down into darkness, saw a faint outline of a floor, maybe 8 feet below. She didn't hesitate. She slid through the opening and dropped. She hit concrete, rolled, came up in a crouch. They were in a maintenance corridor, pipes running overhead, the smell of oil and rust thick in the air. Lang dropped next, landing smoothly. Reed came last. He dropped hard, collapsed on impact, and didn't get up. Elena was beside him in seconds. Blood was seeping through his bandages, pooling on the floor. His eyes were unfocused. "Reed, stay with me." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding out." "I've had worse." "Not recently." She looked at Lang. "We need to stop the bleeding." Lang tore a strip from her jacket and handed it over. Elena pressed it against Reed's side, applying pressure. He hissed through his teeth but didn't pull away. "We can't stay here," Lang said, her eyes on the shaft above. "They'll figure out where we went." "Then we keep moving." They hauled Reed to his feet and started down the corridor. Every door they passed was locked. Every corner led to another identical hallway. The building was a maze down here, designed to confuse. "Which way?" Lang asked. Elena stopped, listened. Somewhere in the distance she could hear voices, footsteps on metal. The sound was coming from behind them. "Forward, fast!" They ran, or tried to. Reed was dead weight between them, his legs barely working. Elena could feel his pulse racing, his skin clammy. He was going into shock. The corridor ended in a loading bay. Metal door, chain link fence beyond it, and past that the parking lot. Freedom was 50 feet away. Between them and the door stood 4 men in tactical gear. The lead man raised a rifle. "On the ground, now!" Lang's hand went to her sidearm, but she didn't draw. 4 guns against 1 pistol was suicide. Elena lowered Reed to the floor carefully, then straightened. Her hands were empty, her posture non-threatening, but her eyes stayed locked on the lead man. "You don't want to do this," she said. "I'm not asking. You know who we are, you know what we found. Doesn't matter, you're not leaving. Then you'll have to kill us, right here, in front of witnesses." The man's expression didn't change. "There are no witnesses." Elena's stomach dropped. He was right, they were alone. No cameras, no staff, no one to see what happened next. Greystone could execute all 3 of them and walk away clean. She glanced at Reed. He was conscious, barely, his hand pressed against his side. His eyes met hers. "Sorry," he mouthed. Elena shook her head. "Not your fault." The lead man took a step forward. "Last chance." On the ground. Lang moved first. She stepped in front of Elena, her hands raised. "I'm a federal agent. If you shoot me, you're done. DOD won't protect you. No contractor immunity will save you." "You think I care?" "You should. Because the second I don't report in, my office sends everything I've collected to the FBI, the Inspector General, and the press. Every file, every name, every company tied to Greystone. Your bosses will burn, and you'll burn with them." The man hesitated, just for a second. That second was all Elena needed. She moved like lightning. Her hand shot out, grabbed the rifle barrel, and yanked it sideways. The man's finger was still on the trigger. The weapon fired, the shot deafening in the confined space. But the bullet went wide, sparking off the concrete wall. Elena twisted the rifle free, reversed it, and slammed the stock into the man's face. He went down hard. The other 3 raised their weapons. Lang drew and fired twice. 1 man dropped, clutching his leg. The other 2 scattered. Elena didn't waste time. She grabbed Reed, hauled him up, and ran for the door. Lang was right behind her, firing covering shots. The door was locked. Elena didn't slow. She slammed her shoulder into it once, twice, and on the third hit the lock gave way. They burst into the parking lot. Cold Montana air hit them like a slap. The sky was gray, the sun barely up. Cars were scattered across the lot, but most were empty. "There!" Lang shouted, pointing at an unmarked sedan near the fence. They ran. Elena could hear shouting behind them, boots on pavement. A bullet whined past her ear. Another shattered a car window to her left. Lang reached the sedan first, yanked the door open. "Get in." Elena shoved Reed into the back seat and dove in after him. Lang slid behind the wheel, jammed something into the ignition, and the engine roared to life. "Where'd you learn to hotwire a car?" Elena asked. "Federal training." Lang threw the car into gear and punched the gas. They tore out of the lot, tires screaming. Elena looked back. Men were pouring out of the loading bay, weapons raised. One of them lifted a rifle. "Down!" Elena shouted. The rear window exploded, glass rained down. Lang swerved hard, cutting through a red light, then another. Horns blared. A truck missed them by inches. "Where are we going?" Lang yelled. "Anywhere that's not here." Lang took another turn, then another, zigzagging through side streets until the hospital disappeared behind them. She finally slowed when they hit the highway, merging into morning traffic. Elena sat back, her heart still hammering. Beside her, Reed was barely conscious, his breathing shallow. "Hospital?" Lang asked. "No. They'll be watching every ER in the state." "Then where?" Elena thought fast. They needed somewhere safe, somewhere Greystone wouldn't think to look, somewhere with supplies. "There's a veterinary clinic 20 miles north. Owner's an old friend. He won't ask questions." Lang glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You sure about this?" "No, but it's all we've got." They drove in silence. Elena kept pressure on Reed's wound, watching his face. His eyes were closed, his skin pale. She'd seen men die from injuries like this. Too much blood loss, too much shock. The body just gave up. "Stay with me," she said quietly. His eyes opened. "Still here." "Good. Keep it that way." Lang's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then swore. "It's my office. They're ordering me back." "What are you going to tell them?" "Nothing. If I check in, they'll track my location. We'll be compromised in minutes." "So you're going rogue?" "Looks like it." Lang tossed the phone out the window. It shattered on the asphalt behind them. Elena almost smiled. "Welcome to the club." The clinic appeared after 20 minutes of winding back roads. It was a small building, barely more than a shed, with a hand-painted sign that read, "Northridge Animal Care." Lang pulled around back and killed the engine. Elena got out and knocked on the rear door. A moment later, it opened. A man in his 50s stood there, gray hair, kind eyes, wearing a stained veterinary coat. "Maya?" He stared at her. "I thought you were dead." "I know. We need help." He looked past her at the car, at Reed bleeding in the back seat, at Lang standing guard with her weapon drawn. His face didn't change. "Get him inside." They carried Reed into the clinic and laid him on an examination table meant for dogs. The vet, his name was Dr. Peter Ortiz, didn't ask questions. He just cut away Reed's shirt, assessed the damage, and started working. "Stitches tore. Lost a lot of blood. I'll stabilize him, but he needs a real hospital." "Can't," Elena said. Ortiz looked at her. "Maya, what the hell is going on?" "The people who tried to kill me are trying to finish the job. Reed got caught in the crossfire, and you brought him to me." "You're the only person I trust." Ortiz exhaled slowly. Then he nodded and went back to work. Elena watched as he cleaned the wound, restitched the torn edges, and hooked Reed up to an IV. The whole process took 20 minutes. By the end, Reed's color was better, his breathing steadier. "He'll live," Ortiz said. "For now. But he needs rest, fluids, and someone watching him around the clock. We don't have that kind of time." "Then you're going to lose him." Elena's jaw tightened. She looked at Reed, at his closed eyes, at the bandages wrapped around his chest. They'd barely made it out alive. And Greystone was still out there, still hunting, still covering up. Lang appeared in the doorway. "We have a problem." "Another one?" "News just broke. Riverside General is reporting a terrorist incident. 2 suspects attacked staff, stole classified files, and fled the scene. Photos of you and Reed are all over the media." Elena's stomach sank. "They're spinning it. Worse, they're using it as cover. By the time anyone figures out the truth, we'll be dead or disappeared." "Then we go public first." "With what? Photos of files? They'll claim they're fake. We need hard evidence, something they can't deny." Elena thought fast. The files were proof, but Lang was right. Greystone could discredit them easily. What they needed was someone on the inside, someone who could testify, someone who'd seen what Greystone was doing and lived to talk about it. "Lucas Monroe," she said suddenly. Lang frowned. "The soldier Reed found in the files." He survived Greystone's experiments. If we can find him, we can prove what they're doing. He's in a psychiatric facility. We don't even know which one. Then we start looking. Ortiz spoke up from the table. There are only 3 long-term care facilities in Idaho that handle military cases: St. Helena Institute, Clearwater Behavioral Health, and Ridgeline Recovery Center. Elena looked at him. How do you know that? I used to work with veterans. Still have contacts. He pulled out his phone. Give me 10 minutes. He disappeared into his office. Elena paced. Lang checked her weapon. Reed slept, his breathing steady but shallow. Ortiz returned 7 minutes later. Found him, Ridgeline Recovery Center. Small facility, about 80 patients. Monroe's been there for 18 months. Can we get to him? Elena asked. Not easily. The place is locked down tight. Private security, monitored access, no visitors without authorization. Then we'll need a way in. Lang holstered her weapon. I might have one. Ridgeline accepts federal inspections. If I show up with credentials and a plausible story, they'll let me in. You think they'll believe you're still working for DOD? They won't know I'm not. My badge is still valid. My ID still scans. As long as they don't call my office, I'm clean. Elena nodded. Then we go tonight. What about Reed? Elena looked at the table. Reed was stable, but barely. Moving him was a risk. Leaving him was worse. He stays here. Ortiz, can you keep him safe? Ortiz hesitated. For how long? 24 hours. After that, this is either over or we're all dead. Ortiz looked at Reed, then back at Elena. All right. But, Maya, if this goes bad, it won't. You don't know that. No. But I'm betting our lives on it anyway. They left at dusk. Lang drove, Elena rode shotgun. The roads were empty, the sky darkening fast. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. They both knew what they were walking into. A locked facility, armed guards, a patient who might not even remember what happened to him. The odds were terrible. But they'd been terrible before. And Elena was still here. Ridgeline appeared an hour later, nestled in a valley surrounded by pine trees. It looked more like a resort than a hospital. Low buildings, manicured lawns, a fence that didn't look threatening until you noticed the cameras. Lang pulled up to the gate and rolled down her window. A guard stepped out of the booth, clipboard in hand. Help you? Lang flashed her badge. Agent Victoria Lang, Department of Defense Criminal Investigation. I'm here to conduct a routine inspection of patient records. The guard frowned. We weren't notified. It's unscheduled, that's the point. He studied her badge, then looked at Elena. Who's she? Medical consultant. The guard didn't look convinced. He went back into the booth and picked up a phone. Lang's hand drifted toward her weapon. Relax, Elena murmured. He's just checking. If he calls my office, he won't. The guard hung up and came back. You're clear. Main building, 2nd floor. Ask for Dr. Brennan. The gate opened. Lang drove through. They parked near the entrance and walked inside. The lobby was quiet, sterile, smelling faintly of disinfectant. A receptionist looked up, smiled politely, and directed them to the 2nd floor. Dr. Brennan was waiting in his office. He was older, tired-looking, with the expression of a man who'd seen too much and stopped caring. He gestured them to chairs. Agent Lang, what's this about? Routine inspection. We're reviewing cases involving military patients. All of them, or specific ones? I'll need to see the full list first. Brennan pulled a file from his desk and handed it over. Lang flipped through it, her eyes scanning names. Elena watched over her shoulder. 23 patients total. Monroe was listed on page 3. I'd like to speak with this one, Lang said, tapping the name. Lucas Monroe. Brennan's expression shifted slightly. Why him? His case was flagged during a separate investigation. Flagged how? That's classified. Brennan studied her for a moment, then stood. Follow me. They walked down a long corridor lined with doors. Some were open, revealing patients sitting on beds or staring at walls. Others were closed, locked from the outside. Brennan stopped at room 217 and unlocked the door. Inside, a young man sat in a chair by the window. He was thin, pale, his hands trembling slightly. He didn't look up when they entered. Lucas, Brennan said gently, you have visitors. The man didn't respond. Brennan sighed. He's been like this for months. Memory issues, dissociative episodes. We've tried everything. Elena stepped forward. Lucas Monroe? Still nothing. She knelt in front of him, her voice soft. Private Monroe. My name is Elena Cross. I served overseas. I know what happened to you. His eyes flickered, just for a second. They hurt you, Elena continued. Greystone Medical. They used you for experiments. You remember that, don't you? His breathing quickened. It's okay. You're safe now. But I need you to tell me what they did. Monroe's lips moved. No sound came out at first. Then, barely a whisper. They took pieces. Elena's blood went cold. What pieces? Memories, time, myself. His eyes finally focused on her. They put things inside me. Drugs, wires, I don't know. It burns. All the time, it burns. Lang had her phone out recording. What else do you remember? Doctors. Not doctors. Men in suits. They watched, took notes. One of them said I was responding well, but I wasn't. I was dying. I could feel it. Do you remember their names? No, just faces, voices. One man, he came every week. Gray hair, scar on his hand. Monroe's voice cracked. He said I should be grateful, that I was serving my country. Elena's hands curled into fists. Did they do this to others? Yes. All the time. New soldiers every month. Some didn't wake up. The ones who did, they screamed. At night. Always screaming. Where did this happen? Riverside, Montana. And before that, other places, Texas, Virginia. They moved us around so no one would notice. Lang stopped recording. Lucas, would you be willing to testify about this? Monroe looked at her, his eyes empty. Testify where? To who? They own everything. They'll just make me disappear again. Not if we stop them first. He laughed, a broken sound. You can't stop them. Nobody can. We're going to try. Monroe turned back to the window. Then you're already dead. They left the room in silence. Brennan locked the door behind them. Is that enough? He asked. Lang nodded. More than enough. They were halfway down the corridor when the lights went out. Brennan froze. That's not normal. Elena already had her hand on Lang's arm, pulling her back toward Monroe's room. We need to move. Now. What? The first gunshot answered her question. Glass shattered somewhere below. Alarms started blaring. Brennan turned and ran. Elena grabbed Lang and shoved her into the nearest room, slamming the door shut. They found us, Lang said. No, they were already here, waiting. Through the door they could hear footsteps, lots of them, moving fast, organized. Elena pressed her ear to the door. Voices in the hall, close now. One of them was giving orders. Secure the floor. Find Lang and the woman with her. No survivors. Lang's face went pale. They're going to kill everyone. Not if we get out first. We can't leave Monroe. We don't have a choice. A door down the hall exploded inward. A patient screamed. The scream cut off abruptly. Lang's hand shook on her weapon. Elena, I know. The footsteps were right outside now. Elena could see shadows moving past the crack under the door. They were searching every room, methodically, efficiently. They had maybe 30 seconds before the door opened. Elena looked around. The room had one window, reinforced glass, overlooking the grounds. 2 stories up, jumpable, barely. Past the window, she could see vehicles pulling up, more men getting out. Greystone wasn't just cleaning up. They were erasing the entire facility. Lang saw it too. They're going to burn this place down, with everyone inside. The door handle turned. Elena kicked the chair through the window before the door finished opening. Glass exploded outward in a shower of fragments. Cold air rushed in. Behind them, the door slammed against the wall and boots hit linoleum. Elena grabbed Lang's arm and shoved her toward the window. Jump! Lang didn't hesitate. She went through head first, rolling as she hit the grass 2 stories down. Elena followed half a second later, the sound of gunfire chasing her through the opening. She landed hard, her ankle screaming in protest, but she rolled through it and came up running. Lang was already moving toward the tree line. Elena caught up, and they crashed into the pines together, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, shouts echoed from the building. Flashlight beams swept the grounds. They ran for 3 minutes straight before Lang stumbled and went down. Elena hauled her back up. "I'm fine." "You're not. Keep moving." They pushed deeper into the woods. The ground was uneven, roots and rocks hidden under pine needles. Elena's ankle was swelling, each step a fresh jolt of pain. She ignored it. Pain was information. Death was permanent. Lang pulled out her phone, checked it, and swore. "No signal." "They're jamming us." "How long do we have?" "Until they figure out we didn't leave the grounds. Then they sweep the woods with thermal." Lang looked back the way they'd come. Through the trees, Ridgeline was lit up like a Christmas display. Vehicles surrounded it. Men moved in formation around the perimeter. "They're going to kill everyone in that building," Lang said, her voice hollow. "Yeah. We have to stop them. We can't. Not alone. Not without weapons or backup." "Then what do we do?" Elena scanned the forest. They were maybe a quarter mile from the facility, heading roughly northwest. The main road was east. That meant Greystone would set up a perimeter there first. But north, past the ridge, was open country, farmland and back roads. If they could make it that far... A helicopter passed overhead, searchlight cutting through the darkness. Elena grabbed Lang and pulled her under a fallen tree. They pressed flat against the dirt, barely breathing. The light swept past once, twice, then moved on. Lang's face was inches from hers. "They're not going to stop." "No. We need help. Police, FBI. Someone. By the time they show up, Greystone will be gone. They'll torch the building, disappear the bodies, and vanish. Monroe, Brennan, every patient in that place erased." Lang's jaw tightened. "Then we get the story out first. Blow this wide open before they can cover it up." "With what?" "Monroe's testimony is still in your phone. We're cut off from any network. Even if we could upload it, Greystone would have it scrubbed in minutes." "Then we get someone bigger, someone they can't silence." Elena stared at her. "Who?" "There's a journalist, investigative reporter, Sarah Vance. She's been digging into military contractor abuse for years. If we can get her the files and Monroe's testimony..." "Where is she?" "Seattle. But she has a field producer in Spokane. That's 2 hours from here." "We don't have 2 hours." "Then we make time." The helicopter swung back, closer now. Elena pulled Lang deeper under the log. The searchlight hit the ground 10 feet from their position, lighting up the forest floor like noon. They held still. The light lingered, then moved on again. Elena waited 30 seconds before moving. "We need a vehicle." "There's a service road on the north side of the property. Maintenance staff use it. Probably has trucks." "Probably doesn't help us." "It's all we've got." They moved north, staying low and fast. The ridge sloped upward, the trees thinning as they climbed. Elena's lungs burned. Her ankle was on fire. She'd twisted it worse than she thought, but stopping meant dying, so she didn't stop. The service road appeared through the trees, narrow, unpaved, lined with potholes. A single truck sat at the end, engine off, doors unlocked. Elena checked inside. Keys in the ignition, either incredibly careless or a trap. Lang opened the passenger door. "Does it matter?" "Not really." Elena slid behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then caught. She threw it into gear and punched the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. They made it 50 yards before the first shots rang out. The rear window shattered. Lang ducked, covering her head. Elena cranked the wheel hard left, then right, zigzagging down the road. More gunfire. A tire blew. The truck veered wildly, but Elena held it steady, compensating for the drag. "They're right behind us," Lang shouted. Elena checked the mirror. 2 vehicles, headlights blazing, closing fast. She pushed the accelerator to the floor. The truck shook, the blown tire screaming against the axle. They weren't going to outrun anyone like this. The road curved sharply ahead. Elena saw the drop-off too late to brake. She yanked the wheel. The truck skidded sideways, hit loose gravel, and went over. They tumbled down the embankment in a chaos of metal and broken glass. The world spun. Elena's head slammed into something hard. Then everything stopped. She came to seconds later, upside down, held in place by her seatbelt. Blood dripped from her forehead into her eyes. Beside her, Lang was groaning, conscious but dazed. Out. Now. Elena hit the seatbelt release and dropped onto the roof. She crawled through the shattered windshield, glass tearing her palms, and pulled Lang out after her. They stumbled away from the wreck just as the pursuing vehicles screeched to a halt at the top of the embankment. Flashlights swept down toward them. Voices shouted orders. Elena dragged Lang into a culvert running under the road. It was half filled with stagnant water, cold and reeking. They waded in, the water up to their thighs, and pressed against the concrete wall. Boots thumped overhead. The flashlight beams played across the wreckage. Someone barked into a radio. Truck's empty. They're on foot, spread out and sweep the area. The boots moved away. Elena counted to 60 before exhaling. Lang was shaking, from cold or shock or both. We can't keep running. We're not running. We're surviving. There's a difference? Yeah. Running means you've given up. They crawled through the culvert until it opened into a drainage ditch on the other side of the road. From there, they followed the ditch north, staying below the sight line. The ground was muddy, treacherous. Elena's ankle threatened to give out with every step. After 20 minutes, the ditch emptied into a shallow creek. They followed it downstream until the lights of Ridgeline disappeared behind the hills. Lang collapsed on the bank, breathing hard. I think I broke a rib. Elena checked her over. Bruising on her right side, shallow breathing, wincing when she moved. Probably fractured, not broken. Painful, but survivable. Can you walk? Do I have a choice? No. They kept moving. The creek led them into farmland. Open fields, barbed wire fences, the occasional barn in the distance. Elena picked a direction and walked. Lang followed, one hand pressed against her side. An hour later, they saw lights, a farmhouse, small and isolated, sitting at the end of a dirt driveway. One truck parked outside. No dogs barking. Elena approached carefully, checking for cameras or motion sensors. Nothing. The place looked decades old, held together by rust and stubbornness. She knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again. A light came on inside. The door cracked open, revealing an older man in a flannel robe, shotgun in hand. He looked them over, muddy, bleeding, barely standing, and his expression didn't change. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. We need help, Elena said. Call the police. We can't. Then you're in the wrong kind of trouble. He started to close the door. Lang stepped forward. Please. We're federal agents. We've been attacked. There are people dying, and we're the only ones who can stop it. The man studied her. You got a badge? Lang pulled it out. He looked at it, then at her face, then back at the badge. Finally, he lowered the shotgun and stepped aside. 5 minutes. Then you're gone. They stumbled inside. The house smelled like coffee and old wood. The man gestured toward a couch. Lang collapsed onto it. Elena stayed standing, her eyes on the windows. You got a phone? Lang asked. The man pointed at an ancient landline mounted on the wall. Help yourself. Lang dialed a number from memory. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. This is Agent Victoria Lang. I need to speak with Sarah Vance. A pause. Who? Sarah Vance, investigative journalist. She's one of your contracted sources. Get her on the line, now. Another pause. Hold. 2 minutes passed. Elena watched the darkness outside. Every shadow was a threat, every sound a warning. Then a woman's voice came through the line, sharp and alert. This is Vance. Ms. Vance, my name is Victoria Lang. I'm with DoD Criminal Investigations. I have evidence of a military contractor using wounded soldiers for illegal medical experiments. 20 confirmed deaths, multiple facilities, and they're erasing witnesses as we speak. Silence. Then, where's the evidence? On my phone. Video testimony, medical files, patient records, everything you need. Can you transmit it? Not from here. We're being hunted. But there's a producer in Spokane, Marcus Kim. I'll call him now. Where are you? Lang looked at the farmer. Where are we? 20 miles north of Ridgeline, Halford Road. Lang repeated it. Vance's voice crackled back. Kim can be there in 90 minutes. Can you hold out that long? We'll have to. Good. Send me everything the second you're secure. If this is real, it goes live tonight. It's real. And Ms. Vance? They're going to come after you too. Let them try. The line went dead. Long hung up and looked at Elena. "We've got 90 minutes. They'll find us before then." "Probably." The farmer stepped forward. "Who's coming?" "Private military contractors," Elena said. "Armed, organized, and willing to kill anyone in their way." "Then you need to leave." "If we leave, they'll track us. If we stay, they'll come here. Either way, you're in danger." The man looked at his shotgun, then back at Elena. "How many are there?" "At least a dozen, maybe more." "And you two are going to fight them off?" "If we have to." He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "You're both half dead already." "We're not dead yet." The farmer studied her for a long moment. Then he walked to a closet and pulled out a hunting rifle. "I was in the army, long time ago, Vietnam. Thought I was done with this kind of thing." "You are. Just give us the rifle and lock yourself in the cellar. This is my land. Nobody's running me off it." Elena wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He'd already made his choice. She nodded. "What's your name?" "Howard. Howard Brenner." "All right, Howard. You know how to shoot that thing?" "Better than most." "Then cover the windows. They come at us fast. Shoot anything that moves." Long pulled her weapon and checked the magazine. 6 rounds left. Elena had nothing. She scanned the room, looking for anything she could use. A fire poker, a kitchen knife, a heavy flashlight. She took all 3. They waited. Outside, the night was silent. Too silent. No crickets, no wind, just the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the old house settling. Elena moved to the front window and looked out. The driveway was empty. The fields beyond were dark. But somewhere out there, men were coming. She could feel it. Lang joined her, moving stiffly. "You think Kim will make it in time?" "I think we're about to find out." The first vehicle appeared 5 minutes later, headlights off, rolling slowly down the driveway. Then a second. Then a third. Elena stepped back from the window. "Howard, get down!" The farmer dropped behind the couch, rifle aimed at the door. The vehicles stopped 50 yards out. Doors opened. Men emerged, weapons raised. They moved in formation, spreading out to surround the house. Lang counted under her breath. 12 visible, probably more in reserve. "They're not taking chances this time." A voice boomed from outside, amplified by a megaphone. "Victoria Lang, Elena Cross, you're surrounded. Come out, and you won't be harmed." Lang snorted. "Right, because they've been so gentle so far." Elena didn't respond. She was watching the way they moved, disciplined, professional, no wasted motion. These weren't rent-a-cops or hospital security. These were operators, trained killers who'd done this 100 times before. The voice came again. "You have 60 seconds. After that, we're coming in." Howard chambered around. "What do we do?" "We hold," Elena said. "For how long?" "As long as we can." The 60 seconds ticked down in silence. Then the shooting started. The front windows exploded inward, glass and bullets filling the air. Elena hit the floor, rolled behind the couch. Lang fired back, her pistol barking twice. One of the shooters went down. Howard opened up with the rifle, the crack deafening in the small room. Another man dropped. But there were too many. They came from all sides, kicking in doors, smashing through windows. Elena grabbed the fire poker and swung hard, catching one man across the face. He went down, but 2 more took his place. Lang's pistol clicked empty. She threw it aside and grabbed a lamp, smashing it over someone's head. Howard was reloading, his hands shaking. Elena fought like an animal, all instinct and rage. The poker connected with a knee, a throat, a skull. Bodies piled up, but more kept coming. She took a hit to the ribs that stole her breath, another to the jaw that split her lip. Blood filled her mouth. She spat it out and kept fighting. Across the room, Lang went down under 2 men. Elena lunged toward her, but someone grabbed her from behind. She threw an elbow back, felt it connect, but the grip didn't loosen. Then Howard fired again. The man holding Elena dropped. Elena spun around. The old man was bleeding from his shoulder, but his rifle was still up. He fired once more, then the rifle clicked empty. He looked at Elena, started to say something. And a bullet took him in the chest. He collapsed without a sound. Elena's vision went red. She grabbed the fallen man's weapon and opened fire. 3 shots. 4. 5. Men scattered, taking cover. She kept pulling the trigger until the magazine ran dry. Then silence. She dropped the empty weapon and looked around. The room was a war zone. Broken furniture, shattered glass, bodies everywhere. Lang was on the floor, barely moving. Howard was dead, his eyes staring at nothing. Outside, engines started. The remaining attackers were pulling back. Elena didn't understand why until she heard the distant sound of rotors. A helicopter, coming fast. She dragged herself to the window and looked up. The chopper was civilian, marked with a news station logo. A camera was mounted on its side, lens pointed down at the farmhouse. The gray stone vehicles peeled away, disappearing into the darkness. Elena sagged against the wall, her entire body screaming. She'd won. Barely. But she'd won. Lang groaned and sat up, blood streaming from a cut above her eye. What happened? Cavalry arrived. Elena pointed at the helicopter. Kim must have brought a news crew. The chopper circled once, then set down in the field behind the house. A man jumped out, camera in hand, and ran toward them. Behind him, a woman followed, mid-40s, sharp eyes, moving like she owned the ground she walked on. Sarah Vance. She took one look at the carnage and pulled out her phone. We're streaming in 30 seconds. You ready? Elena looked at Lang. Lang looked back, then nodded. Yeah, Elena said. We're ready. Vance hit record. The camera's red light came on. This is Sarah Vance reporting live from Halford Road, Montana. Behind me is the scene of a violent attack by private military contractors attempting to silence federal agent Victoria Lang and former military officer Elena Cross. What you're about to hear is testimony regarding illegal human experimentation on American soldiers conducted by a contractor called Greystone Medical Solutions. This story is breaking right now, and it is not going away. She turned the camera toward Elena. Tell them what you know. Elena took a breath. Her face was bruised, bloody, and exhausted, but her voice was steady. My real name is Lieutenant Maya Garrett. 3 years ago, I was declared dead after uncovering evidence of a weapons trafficking operation tied to military contractors. They tried to kill me and my team. Most of them died. I survived by erasing myself. But they didn't stop. They moved on to something worse. She held up Lang's phone, showing the video of Lucas Monroe. This is Private Lucas Monroe. Greystone Medical used him as a test subject for experimental drugs. He's one of at least 20 soldiers we know of. Most of them didn't survive. The ones who did are locked away in psychiatric facilities where no one will listen to them. Vance zoomed in on the phone screen as Monroe's voice played. They took pieces, memories, time, myself. Elena continued. Tonight, Greystone operatives attacked a care facility in Idaho to silence Monroe and erase the evidence. They killed staff. They killed patients. And they would have killed us if we hadn't fought back. Lang stepped into frame, holding up her badge. I'm Special Agent Victoria Lang, DoD Criminal Investigation Division. Everything you just heard is true. I have medical files, patient records, and testimony from multiple sources. Greystone Medical Solutions, backed by Sentinel Defense Group, has been using wounded American soldiers as guinea pigs. And when we tried to expose it, they sent a hit squad after us. Vance turned the camera back on herself. This footage is being broadcast live to millions of viewers. It cannot be deleted. It cannot be suppressed. The names, the evidence, the testimony, all of it is now public record. She lowered the camera. You did it. Elena slumped against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. Her entire body hurt. Her hands were shaking, but somewhere deep inside, beneath the pain and exhaustion, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Relief. Lang sat beside her, breathing hard. What now? Now we wait for the world to catch up. The helicopter's camera kept rolling. Within minutes, police arrived. Then more media. Then federal agents, real ones, not Greystone operatives. The farmhouse became ground zero for the biggest military contractor scandal in decades. Elena gave her statement 3 times. Lang gave hers 4. They were separated, questioned, photographed, examined by paramedics. Elena's ankle was fractured. Her ribs were bruised. She had a concussion and 17 stitches in various places. She didn't care. By dawn, the story had exploded across every news network in the country. Greystone's executives were being raided by federal agents. Sentinel Defense Group's board was resigning en masse. Members of Congress were calling for investigations. The Secretary of Defense was holding an emergency press conference. And in a veterinary clinic 20 miles south, Captain Jackson Reed woke up to find his face on every television screen in America. Elena was sitting in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're alive. Stay that way. Reed." She almost smiled. Lang appeared beside her, carrying 2 cups of terrible coffee. She handed one to Elena and sat down. "FBI wants to put us in protective custody." "For how long?" "Until the trials. Could be months." Elena sipped the coffee. It tasted like gasoline. "I'm not hiding again." "I didn't think you would." Lang looked at her. "You know this isn't over, right? Greystone's done, but Sentinel's bigger. They've got connections everywhere. They'll try to bury this." "Let them try. They'll come after you, after both of us. Then we'll be ready." Lang nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess we will." The sun was rising over the Montana hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Elena watched it climb, feeling the warmth on her face. For 3 years she'd lived in the shadows, hiding from a past that refused to stay buried. But now the shadows were gone. The truth was out, and the people who tried to erase her were the ones running scared. She thought about Howard Brenner, lying dead in his own home because he'd refused to abandon strangers. She thought about Lucas Monroe, broken and forgotten in a locked room. She thought about the soldiers who'd died on Greystone's tables, their families never knowing what really happened. This wasn't over. Lang was right about that. But it had started. The first cracks in the wall. And cracks became breaks. Breaks became collapse. Elena finished her coffee and stood. Her ankle protested, but she ignored it. She had work to do. Lang stood with her. "Where are you going?" "To finish this. You can barely walk." "I'll manage." They walked together toward the command tent that had been set up in the field. FBI agents and military police were coordinating, comparing notes, building cases. Elena recognized one of the agents from earlier, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked up as Elena approached. "Miss Cross? Or should I say, Lieutenant Garrett?" "Elena's fine. I'm Assistant Director Karen Rhodes, FBI. I'll be leading the investigation into Greystone and Sentinel Defense." She gestured at the chaos around them. "You've given us a lot to work with, but we're going to need more. Testimonies. Locations. Names of everyone involved." "You'll have it." "Good. Because this goes deeper than one contractor. We're looking at corruption across multiple agencies, falsified records, murdered soldiers, and a cover-up that lasted years. This is going to take time." "How much time?" "Months, maybe longer. Sentinel's lawyers are already mobilizing. They'll fight every subpoena, every warrant, every witness. They'll drag this out until people stop paying attention." "Then we don't let people stop paying attention." Rhodes studied her. "You're thinking of going public." "I'm thinking of making sure the truth doesn't get buried again. That's dangerous, for you and everyone around you." "I stopped caring about SAFE 3 years ago." Rhodes nodded. "All right. But you do this smart. No vigilante justice, no lone wolf operations. You work with us, follow the rules, and we'll bring these people down the right way." Elena wanted to argue. The right way had failed before. The right way got 16 soldiers killed and buried under classified stamps. But she also knew Rhodes was giving her a chance most people wouldn't get. A chance to see this through without becoming a criminal herself. "Agreed," Elena said. "But I'm not hiding. I'm not disappearing. I stay visible. I stay vocal. And I make sure everyone knows what happened." "Fair enough." Rhodes extended her hand. Elena shook it. Lang joined them, still holding her side. "What's the plan?" "We build an airtight case," Rhodes said, "starting with the hospitals. We're going to audit every military patient treated by Greystone-affiliated facilities over the past 5 years. We'll cross-reference deaths, complications, and suspicious transfers. If there are more victims, we'll find them." "What about Ridgeline?" Elena asked. Rhodes's face darkened. "Fire crews are still on site. Early reports say they found 18 bodies, staff and patients. Greystone torched the place to destroy evidence." Elena's hands clenched. 18 more deaths. 18 more people erased because they'd gotten too close. "Did Monroe survive?" "Unknown. We haven't identified all the bodies yet." Elena turned and walked away before she said something she'd regret. Lang caught up with her at the edge of the field. "Hey, you okay?" "No." "Yeah, me neither." Lang looked back at the command tent. They're going to take over now. Lawyers and bureaucrats. It'll become a legal fight, not a real one. Then we make sure the legal fight has teeth. How? Elena pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her contacts, found the one she needed, and dialed. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Maya? Peter, it's me. Dr. Ortiz sounded relieved. Are you all right? I saw the news. I'm fine. How's Reed? Stable. Awake. Pissed off that he missed everything. Put him on. There was a shuffle. Then Reed's voice came through, rough but strong. You always did know how to make an entrance. I learned from the best. That footage you broadcast, it's everywhere. Social media, international news, congressional hearings. You started a firestorm. Good. We need the heat. Maya, Sentinel's already spinning this. They're calling it a rogue operation, saying Greystone went off the books without their knowledge. They're throwing people under the bus to save themselves. Then we make sure the bus runs them all over. Reed laughed, then winced. Hurts to laugh. But yeah, I'm with you. What do you need? I need you to testify. Full public hearing. Tell them everything. Already planned on it. And I need you to find the others. What others? The ones who survived. The soldiers Greystone used and threw away. Monroe isn't the only one. There have to be more. Reed was quiet for a moment. That's a lot of people to track down. I know, but if we can get them together, get them to speak out, Sentinel can't bury this. They can't discredit a dozen voices all telling the same story. All right, I'll start digging, but Maya, yeah? Watch your back. Sentinel's already lost billions in contracts. People that desperate do stupid things. Let them try. She ended the call and looked at Lang. You in? Lang didn't hesitate. All the way? They spent the next 12 hours giving statements, reviewing evidence, and coordinating with federal investigators. By nightfall, Elena was running on fumes. Her body hurt everywhere, and her mind felt like static, but she kept moving. Stopping meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering. And right now, remembering would break her. Rhodes pulled her aside just before midnight. We've identified the victims from Ridgeline. Lucas Monroe wasn't among the bodies. Elena's chest loosened. Where is he? We don't know. Security footage shows him being escorted out by two men in suits 30 minutes before the fire started. We're trying to track them, but they vanished. Greystone took him. That's our working theory. Then he's still alive. They wouldn't extract him just to kill him. They need something from him. Like what? I don't know, but whatever it is, we need to find him before they get it. Rhodes nodded. We're working on it. In the meantime, I need you both to lay low. Get some rest. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Elena wanted to argue, but her body made the decision for her. She could barely stand. Lang looked worse, pale, shaking, barely conscious. Fine, but first thing tomorrow, we're back at it. Agreed. Rhodes arranged for them to stay in a secure motel outside of town. Two agents stood guard outside, rotating shifts. Elena collapsed onto the bed without bothering to undress. Sleep hit her like a freight train. She woke 6 hours later to sunlight streaming through the window and her phone buzzing nonstop. Messages, missed calls, emails, hundreds of them. Reporters, family members of soldiers, veterans advocacy groups, whistleblowers from other contractors. Everyone wanted to talk. Everyone had a story. She sat up, her body protesting every movement, and started reading. One message stood out. It was from an anonymous sender, no phone number, routed through an encrypted app. You wanted the truth. Now you've got it. But truth has consequences. Monroe knows where the bodies are buried. Literally. If you want him back, come alone. Coordinates attached. You have 24 hours. Elena stared at the screen. It was a trap, obviously. But it was also bait she couldn't ignore. If Monroe was alive, if he had evidence that could bring down Sentinel permanently, she had to try. She showed the message to Lang. Lang read it, then looked at her. You're not seriously considering this. Monroe's the key. Without him, Sentinel can claim everything we found was isolated incidents. With him, we can prove it's systemic. And if you walk into that trap, you're dead. Then I die trying. That's not heroic. That's stupid. Elena stood and grabbed her jacket. I've been dead before. Didn't stick. Lang grabbed her arm. Elena, don't. I have to. Then I'm coming with you. No, you're injured, and someone needs to stay here in case this goes sideways. It's already sideways. Elena met her eyes. If I don't come back, finish this. Make sure Sentinel burns. Make sure everyone knows what they did. Lang's grip tightened. You come back, that's an order. Elena almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. She left before Lang could stop her. The coordinates led to an abandoned warehouse district south of Spokane, 40 miles away. She stole a car from the motel parking lot, hot-wired it in under a minute, and drove. The warehouse appeared just after sunset, a hulking shell of rusted metal and broken windows. No lights, no vehicles, no sign of life. Elena parked a quarter-mile away and approached on foot. Her ankle throbbed with every step, but she pushed through it. She'd been trained to operate through pain. This was nothing. She circled the building once, checking for ambush points. The main entrance was wide open, too easy. She found a side door, forced it open, and slipped inside. The interior was dark, cavernous, smelling of oil and decay. Her footsteps echoed on concrete. She moved carefully, eyes adjusting to the gloom, weapon, a pistol she'd lifted from one of the agents, held ready. Hello, Lieutenant Garrett? The voice came from everywhere, amplified by speakers hidden in the rafters. Elena froze. Or should I call you Elena Cross? You've had so many names it's hard to keep track. Where's Monroe? Safe. For now. I came alone. Let him go. A light clicked on, illuminating the center of the warehouse. Lucas Monroe sat in a chair, hands bound, head down. Blood stained his shirt. He didn't move. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. If you hurt him, he's alive. Barely. But alive. The question is, will he stay that way? What do you want? The same thing you do. The truth. A figure stepped into the light. Tall, gray hair, expensive suit. Elena recognized him from the files. Marcus Holt's superior. One of the men who'd authorized the experiments. His name was Dr. Vincent Cross. No relation, just coincidence. But the irony wasn't lost on Elena. You're Cross, she said. Director Cross. Sentinel Defense Group, Medical Division. And you, Lieutenant, are a problem that should have been solved 3 years ago. Then you should have tried harder. We did. But you're resilient, I'll give you that. He walked closer, hands clasped behind his back. You've caused quite the scandal. Stock prices plummeting, contracts canceled, investigations launched. You've cost us billions. Good. But it doesn't have to end badly. Not for you. Elena laughed. You're offering me a deal? I'm offering you reality. Sentinel isn't going away. We're too big, too connected, too necessary. The military needs us. The government needs us. And no matter how many headlines you generate, that won't change. Then why am I here? Because you want Monroe. And I want insurance. He pulled out a phone and held it up. This device contains every record of every experiment Greystone ever conducted. Names, dates, procedures, results. Everything you need to destroy us completely. Then why would you give it to me? Because I'm not. He tossed the phone to the ground between them. You're going to walk away. Right now. Leave Monroe. Leave the evidence. Go back to hiding. In exchange, I won't release the kill order I've already issued on Captain Reed, Agent Lang, Dr. Ortiz, and every person you've spoken to in the past 72 hours. Elena's blood went cold. You're bluffing. Am I? He pulled out another phone and showed her the screen. Photos of Reed in the clinic, Lang at the motel, Ortiz at home, all taken within the last hour. You hurt any of them? Then what? You'll kill me? You'll go to the press? Lieutenant, I'm already dead. The board's made me the scapegoat. I have nothing left to lose. But you have people you care about, and I can make them disappear. Elena's mind raced. He was right. She could take him down, grab the phone, free Monroe. But the second she did, Sentinel would activate those kill orders. Reed, Lang, Ortiz, all dead. Or she could walk away. Let Monroe die. Let the evidence disappear. Save the people she cared about. It wasn't a choice. It was a trap disguised as one. She lowered her weapon. Cross smiled. Smart girl. Then Lucas Monroe lifted his head. His eyes were clear, focused, and his hands, Elena realized, weren't actually bound, just positioned to look like they were. He moved fast, faster than a man in his condition should have been able to. His arm shot out, grabbing Cross's wrist and twisting. The phone flew from Cross's hand. Monroe caught it midair and slammed it into Cross's face. Cross went down, blood streaming from his nose. Monroe stumbled, but stayed upright. "You talk too much," Monroe said. Elena was already moving. She grabbed the phone from the ground, checked it, encrypted but intact. Then she hauled Monroe to his feet. "Can you run?" "Can you?" They ran. Behind them, alarms blared. Lights flooded the warehouse. Armed men poured in from every entrance. Elena fired twice, dropping the first two through the door. Monroe grabbed a fallen weapon and fired back, his hand shaking, but his aim true. They made it to the side exit, burst through, and sprinted across the parking lot. Elena's car was still where she'd left it. They dove inside. She turned the key, punched the gas, and the car roared forward. Bullets shattered the rear window. Elena cranked the wheel, fishtailing onto the main road. Monroe returned fire through the broken window, forcing their pursuers to scatter. They drove for 10 minutes straight before Elena was sure they'd lost them. She pulled onto a side road, killed the lights, and stopped. Monroe slumped in his seat, breathing hard. "Thanks. Don't mention it." "How'd you know I wasn't really tied up?" "I didn't, but you looked at me wrong, like you were waiting for something." Monroe managed a weak grin. "Good eye." Elena held up the phone. "Is this real?" "Yeah. Everything Cross said, every experiment, every death, it's all in there." "How'd you get it?" "They brought me in to verify the data, make sure nothing was missing before they destroyed it. Idiots trusted me because I'm crazy." He tapped his temple. "Turns out crazy works both ways." Elena stared at the phone. This was it, the smoking gun, the proof that would bury Sentinel completely. She started the car and drove back toward Spokane, toward Lang, toward the FBI, toward the end of this nightmare. But as they reached the city limits, her phone buzzed. A text from Lang. "Rhodes just got pulled from the case. New lead investigator assigned. Someone from DOD. Elena, it's a setup. They're shutting us down." Elena's hands tightened on the wheel. Of course. Sentinel still had people inside. Of course they'd try one last move to kill the investigation. She looked at Monroe. "How do you feel about going on national television?" "Right now?" "Right now." Monroe laughed, then coughed. "Why the hell not?" Elena made a call. Sarah Vance answered on the first ring. "I've got everything," Elena said. "Every file, every name, every crime, and I've got a witness ready to talk. Can you broadcast in the next hour?" "Where are you?" "Spokane. Heading your way." "I'll have a crew ready. This goes live the second you arrive." Elena ended the call and floored the accelerator. Monroe braced himself against the dashboard. "You know they're going to kill us for this," he said. "Probably. And you're okay with that?" Elena thought about the soldiers who'd died on those tables, about Reed fighting through his injuries, about Lang risking everything, about Howard Brenner dead in his own home. "Yeah," she said. "I'm okay with that." They reached the news station 40 minutes later. Vance was waiting outside with a full crew. She took one look at Elena and Monroe, bloody, bruised, barely standing, and nodded. "Let's do this." They went live in 3 minutes. No prep, no script. Just Elena, Monroe, and the truth. Monroe spoke first. His voice shook, but his words were clear. He described the experiments, the drugs, the pain, the soldiers who didn't survive. He named names, cited dates, and held nothing back. Then Elena held up the phone. "This device contains the complete records of Sentinel Defense Group's illegal medical program. Every experiment, every victim, every cover-up. And as of right now, it's being transmitted to every major news outlet, every congressional office, and every law enforcement agency in the country." Vance's producer confirmed. "Upload complete. It's out there." Elena looked into the camera. Sentinel Defense tried to erase us. They tried to silence us. They failed. And now the whole world knows what they did. The broadcast ended. Elena sat back, exhausted. It was done. Within hours, the evidence spread across the internet like wildfire. Senators called emergency hearings. The Attorney General announced federal charges. Sentinel's remaining executives were arrested at their homes. And in a clinic 20 miles away, Captain Jackson Reed watched it all unfold and allowed himself to smile. But in a darkened office in Washington, D.C., a man in an expensive suit watched the same broadcast and picked up his phone. "Activate Protocol Omega," he said quietly. "Burn everything." And somewhere in Spokane, Montana, Elena Cross's phone buzzed one last time. "You won the battle, but wars don't end. Sentinel Command." Elena stared at the message for 3 seconds before deleting it. Then she turned off her phone, removed the battery, and tossed both pieces into a trash can outside the news station. Lang appeared beside her, moving stiffly but steady. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the dumbest. Probably both. Sentinel's going to retaliate. Let them. The evidence is already out there. They can't unsee what the world just saw. Monroe leaned against the building wall, his face gray. They'll come for us anyway. People like Sentinel don't care about evidence. They care about revenge. Elena looked at him. He was right. The broadcast had won them the battle, but wars were fought over time. And Sentinel had resources, connections, people in places she couldn't even imagine. But she'd started something, a crack in the foundation, and cracks spread. "We need to disappear," Lang said. "All of us. Tonight." "I'm done disappearing." "Then you're going to die." Elena met her eyes. Maybe, but not quietly. Vance stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call and looked at them. "You just broke the internet. My producer says we've had 30 million views in the last hour. Congress is calling emergency sessions. The Pentagon's launching an internal review, and half the military contractors in the country are lawyering up." "What about Sentinel?" Elena asked. "Their stock dropped 70% in 30 minutes. Trading's been halted. Board members are resigning, and the Attorney General just announced federal charges against 14 executives." Monroe pushed off the wall. "That's not enough. They've got layers, shell companies, offshore accounts, people who'll take the fall so the real players walk free." "Then we dig deeper," Elena said. "With what? We just burned our only evidence going public." "No, we burned one copy. There are always more." Lang looked at her. "What are you thinking? Greystone wasn't the only contractor Sentinel used. There have to be other facilities, other programs, other victims. We find them, we expose them, and we keep the pressure on until Sentinel collapses completely." "That could take months." "Then we take months," Vance interrupted. "You don't have months. My sources say DOJ's already getting pressure from above to settle quietly. They'll prosecute a few mid-level people, pay some fines, and call it justice. Sentinel will rebrand and be back in business within a year." Elena's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before. The illusion of accountability. A few sacrificial lambs, some public hand-wringing, and then business as usual. Not this time. "We need someone inside," she said. "Someone who knows where the real bodies are buried." "Everyone inside Sentinel is either loyal or terrified," Lang said. "No one's going to flip." "Someone already did." Elena turned to Monroe. "You said they brought you in to verify data. That means they trusted someone enough to show them everything." "Who was it?" Monroe thought for a moment. "Dr. Amelia Reeves. She ran the research division, oversaw all the experimental protocols. She knew every program, every facility, every test subject." "Where's she now?" "Last I heard, she went into hiding after the first broadcast. Sentinel probably has people looking for her too." "Then we find her first." Lang pulled out a backup phone. "I still have contacts at DOJ. I can put out feelers, see if anyone knows where she went." "Do it," quietly. While Lang made calls, Elena sat down on the curb and let the exhaustion hit her. Her body felt like it had been run through a meat grinder. Every muscle ached. Her ankle was swollen to twice its normal size. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Monroe sat beside her. "You look like hell." "You should see the other guys." He laughed, then winced. "I still can't believe we're alive." "Give it time. We might not stay that way." Optimistic. Realistic. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the city hummed with late-night traffic. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Normal life continuing as if the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. Monroe spoke quietly. "Why'd you come for me? You didn't know me. Didn't owe me anything. You were a loose end. Sentinel would have killed you to tie it up." "That's not an answer." Elena looked at him. "Yeah, it is." He studied her face, then nodded. Fair enough, Lang returned, tucking her phone away. Got something. Reeves used a credit card 2 days ago at a gas station outside Portland. Disappeared after that, but it's a starting point. Portland's 3 hours away. Then we better get moving. They borrowed Vance's producer's car, a beat-up sedan that had seen better decades, and drove through the night. Elena took the first shift behind the wheel. Lang sat beside her, monitoring police scanners and news feeds. Monroe slept in the back, his breathing labored but steady. The highway was empty, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through dark forests and darker skies. Elena's hands were tight on the wheel, her mind racing ahead. If Reeves had gone to ground, she had a reason. Either she was scared of Sentinel or guilty about what she'd done. Maybe both. Either way, she was the key to finishing this. Lang broke the silence. You know this might not work. I know. Even if we find Reeves, even if she talks, it might not be enough. Sentinel's got lawyers who can bury evidence for years. Then we make sure they can't. How? Elena didn't answer. She didn't have one yet. But she'd figure it out. She always did. They reached Portland just after 3 in the morning. The gas station where Reeves had used her card was a rundown place off the interstate, the kind that survived on truckers and desperation. Elena pulled in and killed the engine. Now what? Monroe asked. We canvassed the area. Hotels, motels, anywhere someone might hole up without attracting attention. They split up. Lang took the north side of town. Monroe took the south. Elena took the center, focusing on the cheap motels clustered near the highway. She showed Reeves's photo, pulled from a Sentinel Company directory, to desk clerks, asking if they'd seen her. Most didn't remember. A few lied. One finally admitted he'd seen someone matching the description 2 days earlier, checking into the Riverside Inn under a fake name. Elena called Lang. Found her, Riverside Inn, room 214. On my way. Elena approached the motel carefully. It was a 2-story dump with peeling paint and a flickering vacancy sign. Room 214 was on the 2nd floor, curtains drawn. No lights on inside. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Dr. Reeves, my name is Elena Cross. I need to talk to you. Silence. I know you worked for Sentinel. I know what you did. But I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to give you a chance to make it right. The door cracked open. A woman's face appeared in the gap, mid-40s, exhausted, terrified. How did you find me? Does it matter? Reeves stared at her for a long moment, then opened the door. Get inside, quickly. Elena stepped in. The room was small, dark, smelling of stale cigarettes and fear. Reeves locked the door behind them and backed away, keeping distance. You shouldn't be here, Reeves said. Neither should you, but here we are. If Sentinel finds out I talked to you, they already know. Your life's over either way. The only question is whether you go down as a criminal or a witness. Reeves laughed bitterly. There's no difference. I'm dead either way. Maybe. But you can take them with you. Reeves sat down on the bed, her hands shaking. You don't understand. Sentinel isn't just a company. It's a network. Defense contractors, government officials, military brass, they're all connected. You exposed Greystone, and they'll just cut it loose and keep operating. Not if we expose the whole network. With what? The files you broadcast were just Greystone's operations. The real programs, the ones that matter, are buried so deep no one will ever find them. Then you'll tell us where they are. Reeves looked up. Why would I do that? Because you're not a monster. You might have done monstrous things, but you're not one. If you were, you wouldn't be hiding. You'd be on a plane to somewhere without extradition, drinking champagne and counting your money. Reeves's face crumpled. I didn't know. At first, I swear I didn't know. They told us it was voluntary, that the soldiers had signed waivers, that everything was legal. When did you figure out it wasn't? After the 3rd death? A Marine, 22 years old, brain hemorrhage from the drug protocol. I reported it to my supervisor. He told me to falsify the cause of death and move on to the next subject. And you did. I did. Her voice broke. I told myself it was for the greater good, that the research would save lives eventually, but it was a lie. And I knew it. I just didn't want to admit it. Elena sat down across from her. How many died? 47. That I know of. Could be more in other programs. Elena's stomach turned. 47 soldiers, dead because people like Reeves had convinced themselves it was acceptable. You want a chance to make it right? Elena said. Then testify. Tell the world what Sentinel did. Name every person involved. Show us where the other programs are. They'll kill me. Probably, but at least you'll die having done something that mattered. Reeves stared at her, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded. All right, I'll do it. Lang and Monroe arrived 10 minutes later. Reeves gave them everything: names, locations, financial records. She'd kept copies of everything, hidden on encrypted drives scattered across the country. Insurance, she called it. A way to protect herself if Sentinel ever turned on her. Now it would be their weapon. By sunrise, they had enough evidence to bring down not just Sentinel, but half a dozen other contractors and 3 sitting members of Congress. Elena sat in the motel room, surrounded by documents, and felt the weight of it all. This was bigger than she'd thought. Bigger than Greystone. Bigger than Sentinel. This was systemic. We need to move fast, Lang said. Once word gets out that Reeves is cooperating, they'll come for her hard. Then we don't give them time. Elena stood. Vance said Congress is holding emergency hearings. We get Reeves in front of them today. Live testimony. Broadcast it. Make it impossible to silence. Can we get her there safely? We don't have a choice. They drove back to Spokane with Reeves in the back seat, surrounded by boxes of evidence. Elena kept checking the mirrors, waiting for pursuit. But the road stayed empty. Either Sentinel didn't know where they were, or they were waiting for a better opportunity. Elena didn't trust either option. They reached the news station by noon. Vance was waiting, along with a team of lawyers from a veterans advocacy group. They'd arranged for Reeves to testify remotely via video link, keeping her location secret while still putting her on record. The hearing started at 2 p.m. Elena watched from the studio as Reeves sat in front of the camera, pale and shaking, and told her story. She named names: senators, generals, CEOs. She described the experiments in clinical detail, holding nothing back. She showed financial records proving that Sentinel had paid millions in bribes to keep the programs running, and she apologized. I knew what we were doing was wrong, she said, her voice steady now. I knew, and I did it anyway, and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I'm here now because someone gave me a chance to make it right, and I won't waste it. The hearing room erupted. Congressmen shouted questions. Lawyers objected. Reporters scrambled for statements, but the testimony stood. Recorded. Broadcast. Undeniable. Elena turned away from the monitor and found Lang standing beside her. It's over, Lang said quietly. Not yet. Elena, we did it. Sentinel's done. The evidence is out. Justice is coming. Justice takes time, and Sentinel knows it. They'll drag this out, bury it in appeals, and wait for people to stop caring. Then what do you want to do? Elena looked at the screen, at Reeves's face. I want to make sure they never hurt anyone again. The response to Reeves' testimony was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, federal agents raided Sentinel's headquarters. Documents were seized, servers were impounded, executives were arrested at their homes and offices, led out in handcuffs in front of cameras. The Pentagon launched a full investigation into every contractor with ties to Sentinel. Military hospitals were audited, patient records were reviewed, and slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. 73 confirmed deaths. Over 200 soldiers used as test subjects without consent. Millions of dollars in fraudulent contracts. A conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of government and defense. Elena watched it all unfold from a safe house provided by the FBI. Lang was there. Monroe was there. Reed had been transferred from Ortiz's clinic to a secure medical facility, recovering under guard. They'd won. But the victory felt hollow. 73 dead, 200 lives destroyed, and all of it could have been stopped years earlier if someone had just looked closer, cared more, fought harder. Elena sat on the couch, staring at the news coverage, and felt the weight of it all pressing down. Lang sat beside her. You okay? No. Yeah, me neither. Those soldiers, they trusted the system. They thought they'd be taken care of, and instead they were used and thrown away. We made sure people know what happened. We made sure it won't happen again. Elena looked at her. Will it? Or will it just be a different company, a different program, a different cover-up? Lang didn't have an answer. The trial started 3 months later. Elena testified at everyone. So did Lang. So did Monroe. So did Reeves, who'd been placed in witness protection but insisted on appearing in person. The verdicts came down like hammers. Sentinel's CEO got 30 years. The medical director got 25. Dr. Vincent Cross, who'd tried to make Elena choose between Monroe and her friends, got life without parole. 14 other executives were convicted. 6 members of Congress resigned. The Secretary of Defense was impeached. It was, by any measure, a complete collapse. But Elena knew better. Somewhere, someone was learning from Sentinel's mistakes, figuring out how to hide better, how to cover their tracks more carefully, how to avoid getting caught next time. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. She was sitting in a coffee shop in Seattle, watching the rain fall, when a familiar face appeared across the table. Captain Jackson Reed looked almost healthy now. The color had returned to his face. The stitches were gone. He moved without wincing. "Thought I'd find you here," he said. "I'm predictable." "You're consistent." He sat down. "I've been officially reinstated. Full rank, full honors, full back pay." "Congratulations." They offered me a desk job, Pentagon liaison, overseeing contractor relations. Elena almost laughed. "Did you take it?" "What do you think?" "I think you told them where to shove it." Reed grinned. "Close. I told them I'd take it only if they let me build a task force dedicated to investigating contractor abuse. Independent oversight, full authority, no interference." "And they agreed?" "They didn't have a choice. Too much public pressure, so yeah, they agreed." He leaned forward. "I want you on the team." Elena shook her head. "I'm not a soldier anymore." "You never stopped being one." "Reed, I'm not asking you to go back to the way things were. I'm asking you to help make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "These are preliminary reports from other facilities. Patterns of suspicious deaths, unauthorized procedures, missing records. We're just scratching the surface, and I need people who know what to look for." Elena opened the folder. Inside were files, photos, names, soldiers who died under circumstances eerily similar to the ones Greystone had created. She closed the folder. "How many?" "We don't know yet. Could be hundreds." Elena looked out the window. The rain was coming down harder now, sheets of water blurring the street beyond. Somewhere out there, soldiers were being used, abused, discarded, and the people responsible were betting no one would care enough to stop them. They were wrong. "All right," Elena said. "I'm in." Reed smiled. "Good. We start Monday." He left the folder on the table and walked out. Elena sat there for a long time staring at it. Then she opened it again and started reading. She was halfway through the second file when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then answered. "Elena Cross?" The voice was male, older, calm. She didn't recognize it. "Who is this?" "Someone who appreciates what you've accomplished. Sentinel was a corrupt organization and you brought it down. Impressive work." "If this is a sales pitch, it's not. It's a warning." The voice hardened. "You've made powerful enemies, people who don't forgive, people who don't forget. Sentinel's collapse has created opportunities for others. Competitors who are smarter, more careful, and far more dangerous than Sentinel ever was." "Who are you?" "Someone who's been watching. Someone who knows that this war isn't over. It's just beginning." The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone, her pulse quickening. She looked down at the folder in front of her, at the names of dead soldiers staring back at her. The voice was right. This wasn't over. But neither was she. She stood, grabbed the folder, and walked out into the rain. Somewhere in the city, Lang was coordinating with federal prosecutors. Monroe was working with veterans groups to identify more victims. Reeves was preparing for the next round of testimony. And Elena Cross, Lieutenant Maya Garrett, was about to do what she did best. Hunt. But as she turned this corner, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, wearing a dark coat, face obscured by a hood. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, blocking her path. Elena's hand went to the weapon she no longer carried. The figure pulled back the hood. Elena's breath caught. It was Dr. Marcus Holt, the man who'd humiliated her, the man who'd tried to bury her, the man who should have been in prison. He smiled. "Hello, Lieutenant. We need to talk." Elena didn't step back. She didn't run. She stood in the rain and stared at the man who'd tried to destroy her career before it had even started at Riverside General. "You're supposed to be in custody," she said. Holt's smile widened. "I was. Then I made a deal." "With who?" "People who understand that talent shouldn't go to waste. People who recognize that Sentinel's collapse created a vacuum, and vacuums get filled." Elena's mind raced. Holt had been arrested with the others. She'd seen the footage. But if he was standing here now, free and confident, that meant someone powerful had pulled strings. "What do you want?" "To offer you a choice, the same one Vincent Cross tried to give you, but without the theatrics." He gestured at the folder in her hand. "You're investigating more facilities, more victims, and you'll find them. But every time you shut one down, 3 more open somewhere else. You're fighting a system that's designed to protect itself. Then I'll keep fighting until the system breaks. Or you could join it. Help make it better from the inside. Reed's task force is a good start, but it's limited. Government oversight, bureaucratic delays, political interference. I'm talking about something else. A private initiative, well-funded, with real power to make changes." "Funded by who? The same people who funded Sentinel?" "By people who learned from Sentinel's mistakes. Who want to do things the right way this time." Elena laughed. "There is no right way to experiment on soldiers without consent." "I agree. Which is why this would be different. Voluntary programs, full disclosure, ethical oversight, real science instead of butchery." He stepped closer. "You could save lives, Elena. Isn't that what you wanted when you became a medic, to help people? Not by selling out to the next monster in line." Holt's expression hardened. "Then you're a fool, and you'll spend the rest of your life chasing shadows while the real work happens without you. I'd rather chase shadows than become one." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I thought you'd say that. Shame. You would have been useful." He turned to walk away, then stopped. "One more thing. That warning you just received, it wasn't a bluff. The people I work with now don't forgive loose ends, and you, Lieutenant, are a very loose end." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. Watch your back." He walked away, disappearing into the rain-soaked streets. Elena stood there, water dripping from her hair, her heart pounding. She pulled out her phone and called Lang. "We have a problem." Lang met her 30 minutes later at a secure location, a federal office building downtown. Reed was already there, along with Assistant Director Rhodes and 2 agents Elena didn't recognize. She explained what had happened: Holt's appearance, his offer, his warning. Rhodes swore. "Holt was released 3 days ago. Plea deal. He gave up financial records in exchange for immunity and witness protection." "Who authorized it?" Elena asked. "Someone above my pay grade, and when I tried to push back, I was told to drop it." "So he's untouchable. For now." Rhodes pulled up files on her laptop. "But if what he said is true, if there's a new organization forming to replace Sentinel, we need to find out who's running it before they get established." Reed leaned forward. "We have names from Reeves's testimony. Former Sentinel board members, military contractors, defense lobbyists. Start there." "Already did. Most of them have gone underground. Shell companies, offshore accounts, fake identities. They're ghosts." Elena looked at the screen, at the list of names and faces. Some she recognized from the trials. Others were new, but they all had one thing in common. They'd walked away from Sentinel's collapse with their fortunes intact. "They're regrouping," she said, "building something new, and they're doing it smarter this time." "Then we hit them before they finish," Reed said. Rhodes shook her head. "We can't. Not without evidence. And without evidence, we're just conspiracy theorists." "Then we get evidence." "How?" "These people are professionals. They've learned from every mistake Sentinel made. They won't leave trails." Elena thought for a moment. "Holt approached me because he thought I'd be tempted. That means they're recruiting, looking for people with skills they need. If we can get someone inside—" "You want to go undercover?" Lang interrupted. "Elena, you're the most recognizable face in this whole mess. They'll know who you are before you walk through the door. Not me. Someone they don't know, someone clean." "Who?" Elena pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. She stopped at one name and dialed. The call connected after 2 rings. "Dr. Ortiz, it's Elena." "Maya, are you all right? I need a favor. A big one." An hour later, they had a plan. It was risky, complicated, and had a dozen ways to fail, but it was the only option they had. Dr. Peter Ortiz would pose as a researcher looking for funding. His background was legitimate. Decades of veterinary medicine, some work with military animals, enough credentials to seem plausible without attracting too much attention. He'd reach out to contacts in the defense contracting world, express interest in new opportunities, and see who responded. If Holt's organization took the bait, Ortiz would wear a wire and gather evidence. If they didn't, they'd try someone else. It took 3 days before Ortiz got a call back. An anonymous email, encrypted, offering a meeting to discuss mutually beneficial opportunities. Location to be disclosed 24 hours in advance. Rhodes assembled a surveillance team. Lang coordinated with federal prosecutors. Reed prepped tactical backup in case things went wrong. Elena stayed in the background, monitoring from a command center set up in a van 2 blocks from the meeting location, a hotel conference room in downtown Seattle. Ortiz walked in at exactly 2 p.m., wearing a suit and a wire so small it was invisible. Elena watched through the camera feed as he sat down across from 2 men in expensive suits. Neither was Holt. Dr. Ortiz, one of them said, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. Your email was intriguing. We represent a consortium of private investors interested in advancing medical research for military applications. We understand you have experience in trauma medicine and field operations." "I do." "And you're looking for funding?" "I'm looking for the right partnership. Funding is part of that." The man smiled. "We appreciate discretion. The work we do is sensitive, cutting edge. Not everyone has the stomach for it. I've spent 30 years patching up animals most people wouldn't touch. I have the stomach." "Good. Then let me be direct. We're continuing research that was interrupted by unfortunate circumstances. Sentinel Defense Group had the right ideas, but poor execution. We're correcting those mistakes." Elena's blood went cold. They weren't just replacing Sentinel, they were continuing its work. Ortiz kept his voice steady. "What kind of research?" "Enhanced recovery protocols, accelerated healing, cognitive enhancement, the kind of advancements that could save thousands of soldiers' lives." "And how are you testing these protocols?" "With volunteers, fully informed, fully compensated, no repeats of past errors." "Who oversees the ethics?" The second man spoke for the first time. "We do. Internal review boards, medical professionals with decades of experience, everything above board. And if I wanted to see your facilities, review your protocols, that can be arranged after you sign the appropriate non-disclosure agreements." Ortiz nodded. "I'd like to think about it." The first man's smile faded slightly. "Of course, but we need an answer within 48 hours. Opportunities like this don't wait." "Understood." Ortiz stood, shook hands, and walked out. The feed cut as he left the building. Elena exhaled. They had it. Admission of continuing Sentinel's research. References to volunteers that sounded legitimate on the surface but were almost certainly coerced. Enough to justify warrants and raids. Rhodes was already on the phone with federal judges. Lang was coordinating with FBI field offices. Within 6 hours, they had search warrants for 3 facilities, 2 in Washington, 1 in Oregon. The raids happened simultaneously at dawn. Federal agents stormed the location, seizing computers, documents, and equipment. At the Oregon site, they found medical bays set up for human trials. At one of the Washington locations, they found financial records linking the operation to former Sentinel executives. And at the third site, they found patients. 7 soldiers, all listed as volunteers, all showing signs of recent medical procedures. When questioned, their stories fell apart. They'd been recruited under false pretenses, told the treatments were standard care, and pressured to continue even when side effects emerged. Elena watched the arrests on live television. 12 people taken into custody, including the 2 men who'd met with Ortiz. Holt wasn't among them. He'd disappeared again. But this time, his employer hadn't. The trials began 4 months later. The new organization, called Apex Medical Research, was dismantled piece by piece. Its financiers were exposed. Its facilities were shut down. Its leadership was convicted and sentenced. And this time, the sentences stuck. No plea deals, no immunity, no backroom arrangements. 35 people went to prison. 2 senators resigned. The Pentagon implemented new oversight protocols for all military medical contractors. and Congress passed legislation requiring independent review of any research involving active duty personnel. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Elena testified one last time at the final trial. The defendant was a former Sentinel board member who'd helped fund Apex. She sat in the witness box and told her story, all of it. The ambush, the betrayal, the years of hiding, the fight to expose the truth. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Elena walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine. Lang was waiting on the steps, along with Reed and Monroe. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. They'd won. A year later, Elena stood in a classroom at a teaching hospital in Boston, facing 20 medical students. She was a guest lecturer now, brought in to teach trauma medicine and ethics. The students stared at her with a mix of awe and curiosity. They knew who she was. Everyone did. She began her lecture the way she always did. My name is Elena Cross. Some of you know me as Lieutenant Maya Garrett. Some of you know me as the woman who brought down Sentinel Defense. I'm here to tell you that both of those identities are true, and neither of them defines me. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of soldiers in a field hospital. What defines me is the choice I made when I saw something wrong. I could have stayed quiet, kept my head down, survived. But I didn't. And that choice cost me everything. My career, my identity, my safety. For a long time, I thought that made me a failure. She clicked to the next slide, the faces of the soldiers who died under Sentinel's care. Then I met these people, soldiers who trusted the system to protect them, who believed that serving their country meant something. They were betrayed, used, discarded, and no one spoke for them. She clicked again. Photos of the trials, the convictions, the sentences. So I did. And I learned something. Speaking up doesn't make you a hero. It makes you a target. But staying silent makes you complicit. And I'd rather be a target than live with that weight. She turned to face the students. You're going to be doctors. You're going to have power over people's lives. And someday, you'll see something that's wrong. Maybe it's a colleague making a mistake. Maybe it's a hospital cutting corners. Maybe it's something bigger, and you'll have a choice. Stay quiet and protect yourself, or speak up and risk everything. She paused. I can't tell you what to choose, but I can tell you this. The people who need you most are the ones who can't speak for themselves, the ones who trust you to do the right thing even when it's hard. Don't let them down. The lecture ended to silence, then applause. Elena packed her notes and left the building. Outside, the air was crisp and clean. She walked through the campus, past students rushing to classes, past professors deep in conversation. Her phone buzzed. A message from Reed. New facility flagged in Texas. Suspicious patterns. Sending you the file. Elena smiled. The work never stopped, but neither did she. She pulled up the file and started reading as she walked. Behind her, the students filed out of the building, some of them already debating what she'd said. Some agreed, some didn't. That was fine. She hadn't come to make them agree. She'd come to make them think. 3 blocks away, she passed a newsstand. The headline caught her eye. Former Sentinel executive dies in custody. Holt found dead in protective housing. Elena stopped and bought a paper. The article was short. Marcus Holt had been found dead in his apartment, no signs of foul play. Authorities suspected suicide. Elena didn't believe it for a second. Someone had tied up a loose end. But Holt was gone. And so was the organization he'd tried to build. She folded the paper and kept walking. That evening, she met Lang and Monroe at a bar near the hospital. They sat in a corner booth, beers in hand, and didn't talk about work. They talked about normal things, sports, weather, the overpriced sandwich Monroe had eaten for lunch. It felt strange, normal, like they were people instead of survivors. You ever think about what you'd be doing if none of this had happened? Monroe asked. Elena shrugged. I'd probably still be hiding somewhere. Different name, different life. You regret it? Coming forward? Every day. But I'd do it again. Lang raised her glass. To bad decisions and good outcomes. They drank. Later, Elena walked home alone. Her apartment was small, nondescript, the kind of place that didn't draw attention. She liked it that way. She unlocked the door, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed on the couch. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Lieutenant Garrett? The voice was young, female, nervous. My name is Private First Class Daniels. I'm stationed at Fort Carson. I need help. Elena sat up. What kind of help? I was injured overseas. They brought me back for treatment. But the doctors, they're doing things that don't make sense. Tests I didn't agree to, drugs I don't recognize. I asked questions, and they told me to stop asking. Elena's pulse quickened. Where are you now? In the hospital, but I think they're going to transfer me tomorrow to a private facility. I'm scared. Stay where you are. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'm sending people to get you. You'll help me? Yeah, I'll help you. Elena ended the call and immediately dialed Reed. He answered on the first ring. We've got another one, she said. Where? Fort Carson. I'll send you the details. We'll have people there in 2 hours. Elena hung up and stared at the phone. It never stopped. The calls kept coming, soldiers reaching out, terrified, desperate, looking for someone who'd believe them. And she answered everyone. Because that's what you did when you saw something wrong. You didn't look away. You didn't stay silent. You fought. Even when it hurt. Even when it cost you everything. You fought. She stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out before her, lights glittering in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Private Daniels was waiting. And somewhere beyond her, others were suffering in silence. But not for long. Elena Cross, Lieutenant Maya Garrett, had spent years being erased, dismissed, and underestimated. They'd called her weak. They'd called her an outsider. They'd shoved her into supply closets and told her to stay in her lane. They'd been wrong. She wasn't weak. She was steel-wrapped in silence. She wasn't an outsider. She was a soldier who'd never stopped fighting, and she wasn't going anywhere. The phone buzzed again. Another message from Reed. Team's en route. Daniels will be safe by midnight. You did good. Elena smiled. Yeah, she had. The world wasn't fixed. It never would be. There would always be people who saw power as permission to hurt others. There would always be systems designed to protect the powerful and sacrifice the vulnerable. But there would also be people like her, people who refused to stay quiet, people who fought even when the odds were impossible, people who looked at injustice and said, not on my watch. That was the lesson she'd learned. Not that one person could change everything, but that one person could start something, a crack in the wall, a voice in the silence, a name given back to the forgotten, and sometimes that was enough. Elena turned away from the window and went to her desk. She pulled out the file Reed had sent earlier, the Texas facility. She started reading, taking notes, building a case. Tomorrow, she'd start making calls. She'd coordinate with federal agents. She'd find the victims and bring them into the light. Tomorrow, she'd keep fighting. But tonight, for just a moment, she let herself feel it. The weight lifting, the knowledge that she'd done something that mattered, that the soldiers who died under Sentinel's care hadn't been forgotten, that their names had been spoken, that justice, however imperfect, had been served. She thought about Howard Brenner, who'd died defending strangers. She thought about Lucas Monroe, who'd found his voice again. She thought about Victoria Lang, who'd risked everything for the truth. She thought about Jackson Reed, who'd refused to give up on her even when she'd given up on herself. And she thought about the girl she'd been, Lieutenant Maya Garrett, idealistic and naive, who'd believed the system would protect her if she just played by the rules. That girl was gone, buried under classified files and fake identities. But Elena Cross had risen from those ashes, scarred, angry, unbreakable. And she wasn't done yet. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere a soldier was suffering in silence. Somewhere a conspiracy was forming. Somewhere someone was betting that no one would care enough to stop them. They were about to learn they'd bet wrong. Because Elena Cross had learned the most important lesson of all. They could take your name, they could take your career, they could take everything you'd built and burn it to the ground. But they couldn't take your voice. And as long as you had that, you had power. The power to speak, to fight, to refuse to be erased. The power to stand in front of a system designed to crush you and say, I'm still here. That was justice, not perfect, not painless, but real. And it was worth fighting for. Elena closed the file and stood. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new victims, new fights. But tonight, She allowed herself one moment of peace, one moment to remember that she'd started this journey alone, dismissed and powerless, and she'd ended it surrounded by people who'd believed in her, who'd fought beside her, who'd refused to let her be forgotten. That was the real victory, not the trials or the convictions or the headlines. It was the proof that one person could matter, that one voice could start an avalanche, that the woman they'd mocked as powerless had become the one they couldn't silence. They'd tried to erase her. Instead, she'd rewritten the story. And she wasn't done writing yet.